All right, trucks at Chicagoland. So here are the settings that I use. 16:1 for steering ratio. Again, choose whatever steering ratio you want. I'm not going to force you because it's all comfort based at the end of the day. Offset 0 degrees on this is like 0 degrees on the straightaway. So I find that comfortable too. Again, comfort based. Brake bias, we might be using it late in the run. For that reason, I'm putting it low. But if you think that you're going to get some short runs where you're not going to be using the brake like ever, then I would suggest keeping it high purely for pit road. It's kind of a gamble, right? Because 48% brake bias is going to be really tough on pit road to get slide into your box, slow down, and stuff like that. But if you think that you're going to be dragging it for really late in the run, which if you get past like that 25 lap mark, yeah, you will be. But that might not be too common. So it's hard to make a recommendation on that. But if we're talking about just about like how the car runs on the long run, then yeah, then we're going to go with the lower brake bias. Otherwise, you can kind of just keep it higher. All right, so the line for this qualifying is very different. Or like there are multiple lines that can work. You can just run the top full throttle. And with that, I think that it'll be able to make it fairly close. So we're gonna, for our first lap, just run top just to kind of show you. I won't quite have the speed making it to the line here. But I'll show you that it's possible just to full throttle top. And then bottom also works. I think that the best line is going to be bottom of 1 and 2, top of 3 and 4. From all my testing, that's what I think it's going to be. So you can see here, we're coming back. It's getting close, but we're going to be a few hundredths short. Then top of 3 and 4. So the top is going to be the easier line. So if you want something that you can just bank in, like here. Oh, you know what? This might actually end up being faster. I'm going to show you the other way too. Look how, okay. Yeah, okay. Basically the same time as what I've done before. So now we're going to try bottom. Get out of the throttle, bring it down to the bottom. Full throttle, try to bring it up to the line. It's going to be a little more, just a little bit harder running the bottom. And then I still like top 3 and 4. Bottom of 3 and 4, you have to slow down too much. But you see how the time comes back to us, even because of doing that? So it's like the same time either way. I'll show one more option, bottom. And this one will come all the way back as we're on our third lap. But it's pretty close. And then bottom of 3 and 4 as well. A little late arc. Try to get it really down on the bottom, try to get the wheel straightened out early. You see, we're not really able to make up that corner speed in 3 and 4, and then we just don't have the run. So bottom or top 1 and 2, top of 3 and 4. Now, what I would recommend to the vast majority of people is just run the top of 1 and 2 and the top of 3 and 4. It's the most consistent. You can just full throttle it, just have to worry about your steering wheel. But I do personally think that I'm not doing the bottom like perfectly, and I think that if you go by what's optimal and everything like that, I think that that bottom of 1 and 2 is going to be better than 3 and 4. Or sorry, bottom of 1 and 2 is better than top of 1 and 2. But let's take a look at the top lap because I think that's what the most people are going to be using here. So run up. This should be second lap. I'm actually even a little bit slower. That might even be a better case for top of 1 and 2 because I didn't have my best speed coming to the line. But you just run the top. Not much to talk about with that. And then going into 1 and 2, just see full throttle. So when I turn into the corner, I want to make sure that my car is pointed just slightly down the hill right before the banking starts, because if you fall behind on it, your car is going to want to slide up into the wall, and we want to be pretty high up. So you want to make sure that you have that timing so that nose goes from straight ahead to a little bit angled down. You see how my turn starts just a little bit early? See right there, this is perfect. Wheel turned, nose pointed before the banking starts. And this allows me to be pretty much, like it's going to handle pretty poorly on cold tires on the first lap, but that makes it like possible. If you go straight into the corner and you don't turn in before the banking starts, like right before the banking starts, then you're just going to go straight up into the wall, or you're going to have to oversteer the car to where it like catches and loses grip and all that stuff. Same for 3 and 4. 3 and 4 is going to have a tighter entry than 1 and 2, so I turn in even a little bit earlier. You see how I go a little bit lower? You don't have to go a little bit lower, but I find that in 3 and 4, I use it as a bit of a safety net to go low in 3 and 4. And 3 and 4, once you kind of get going, is a lot easier to handle on exit than 1 and 2. And then we go down there. Start it again. So 1 and 2, it has a really wide entry, so we don't have to dip down as low. But we're going to have to keep that wheel input for longer. And the wheels like to slide around a lot more in that case. But 3 and 4, we have to dip a little bit lower on entry. But once we get the car to stick, it's a lot easier getting off the corner. And then if we go to 1 and 2 of the next corner, so just a little slightly late apex, but we want to make sure that our nose is pointed early again. So notice wheel turn before the banking starts, right before the banking starts. Get down to that white, just hold that 70% throttle, and just try to full throttle straight up off the corner. That's going to be our long run line too, but I'll go over that actually a bit more right now because that's probably easier to talk about. So that low line, I really like in 1 and 2. 3 and 4, it's fairly easy to get abused for running that line in the beginning of the run, so I would almost suggest running the top 3 and 4, at least on the short run, and then maybe transition to the bottom once things get spread out a little bit. Because what happens is when you're able to carry the same amount of speed on the bottom as the top in 3 and 4, or you're not able to really pull ahead in 3 and 4, people are just going to drive to your outside and you're going to have to choke up your exit, and that's just not going to work for you. So for 1 and 2 here, I just go right before the corner, I go that 60% throttle, and I just hold that, pretend that that's my full throttle, and then only go full throttle when I can let the car slide back up the track and unload the wheel. And you see, it's not that slow. And it's pretty decent on tires too. 3 and 4, just make sure that you're not sliding your wheels. You don't have to be right by the wall. Like, you can be right here. Just drive like wherever you're comfortable, and make sure not to slide the rear tires. And that's all you're going to need for tire saving. For 1 and 2, if you're running the bottom, get out of the gas before the turn starts, get down to the bottom, and just run that bottom. And then once you see the red, you can kind of start sliding up towards it with full throttle. Make sure you're not sliding the rear. Again, very respectable 1 and 2. People aren't going to pass you on the high side if you run a corner like that. But I'll show you what the bottom of 3 and 4 is like next time around, because that's ultimately, it depends on what you're heating up, right? If you're heating up your right rear real bad, you might want to be running the top, but if you're heating up the bottom, or sorry, the right front, you might just want to be running the bottom. I'm just holding that amount, looking at the red, and then just driving straight back up towards the red. Again, very good pace for being on the bottom versus the top. For the 3 and 4, you'll see that it's almost the same, but you just aren't able to make up that time mid-corner, and you see how far that pulls ahead off of 3 and 4? Oops. Shallow entry. Honestly, shallow entry is fine too here. You might have to wait a little bit longer. This is what happens like when you're on the bottom. Only lost like a tenth there, and I was like halfway off the wall. So you really can be side by side wherever you want on the bottom. 3 and 4, let's see how much time I make up here. I had to pedal a little bit, so maybe that's not quite what I wanted to see. But I just get that crazy run back. One and 2, we'll try the bottom again. So just make sure to experiment with lines, because Chicago is one of the best places for experimenting with lines. Whatever you're doing though, make sure you're not hearing that right rear tire get out from under you, and make sure that you're turning in early enough to where you're not using a ton of steering wheel to force your rotation. So here I'm gonna run more of the safer line here, and it actually runs a lot better than right by the wall in my opinion. You can be right by the wall, but it just requires a really good timing. And now let's run the top of 1 and 2, see what that's compared to. See, I have to keep the car rotated more because the corner tightens as you go along. So 1 and 2 top, even though look how fast it is here, it's a little tiny marginal bit faster. But 3 and 4, since you do kind of like the slowing early, and the corner opens up from there, it's a lot easier to handle on center and exit. Whereas 1 and 2, if you're up there, you might carry a lot of speed because it starts wide, but then as it tightens up, you're going to be forced to use more and more steering wheel, and that's where the tire wear and tire heat comes from running the top. So I would personally just run this bottom, become really disciplined at it, and really work on not spinning your tires. I mean, if it's a tenth slower, that might not be worth it, to be quite honest with you. It's all about experimenting. Like, I did something on the bottom there, oops, that probably wasn't great for my time. But yeah, let's take a look at tires. You see how everything can work in different scenarios, but if you're running that top, the more it's going to be really easy to just slide those tires to try to make it through the corner, and it'll work for the first bit, but the more you do that, the more it's going to hurt you by the end of the run. If you're running the top lane and your tires aren't sliding, you're fine. Like, that doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things, but it's all about those little moments. So yeah, 96, 95. So if I was running that top in 1 and 2 and sliding my rear, that would escalate more and more and more and more. But so at that case, it's just about keeping the car under you, and you can pick whatever line you want. All right. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.